The diner was half empty that chilly Tuesday morning, sunlight filtering through the blinds and thin, broken lines across the worn wooden tables. Jack Turner sat in the corner booth with his 6-year-old daughter Emily, trying to convince her that pancakes could solve almost anything. He smiled at her, that tender, tired smile only single parents knew, the one that said, "I'm doing my best even when I have nothing left." But as he reached for his coffee, a sharp sound shattered the calm, the clatter of porcelain hitting tile, followed by a faint, trembling gasp. Everyone turned. The young waitress stood frozen, a shattered plate at her feet, her hands shaking. A man in a suit sitting at the counter had just spoken, his voice sharp, cold, and dripping with authority. "Watch where you're going, sweetheart," he had said. Not loudly, but with the kind of tone that carried more power than volume. And something about that voice, it had done something to her. Her face had gone pale, her lips trembled, her eyes filled with a fear Jack hadn't seen in years, not since the night he'd lost his wife. Jack's stomach tightened. He didn't know why, but something about that moment tugged at the place deep inside him where empathy and instinct met. He watched as the waitress quickly bent down, apologizing again and again, her voice cracking. The man just sneered and turned back to his coffee. Jack didn't know it yet, but what he just witnessed was the start of something that would change not only her life, but his too. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's spread love instead of judgment. Her name tag read Sarah. She looked about 28, maybe 30, with tired hazel eyes that carried more stories than she'd ever tell. Her wrists were thin, her uniform slightly loose, as if she'd recently lost weight. When she came over to clean the mess, Jack leaned forward slightly and said softly, "Don't worry about it. Happens to all of us." She looked at him briefly, a flicker of surprise passing through her fear, and whispered a shaky, "Thank you." He smiled and turned back to Emily, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. Every time a man spoke a little too loudly, she'd flinch. Every time the bell above the door jingled, she glanced up with a panic that didn't belong in a place as ordinary as a diner. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Over the next few weeks, Jack and Emily kept returning, partly for the pancakes Emily adored, partly because he couldn't stop worrying about Sarah. She was kind to Emily, always remembering her favorite syrup, always drawing a little smiley face with whipped cream on her plate. But beneath her soft smiles, Jack could sense a storm. Sometimes she'd come in with a faint bruise half hidden by makeup. Sometimes her hands would tremble while refilling cups. One morning, as rain tapped softly on the windows, Emily asked, "Daddy, why does Miss Sarah always look sad?" The question hit him hard. Children had a way of noticing what adults tried to ignore. Jack hesitated before replying. "Maybe she's just had a hard time, sweetie." Emily nodded quietly, then drew a small picture on her napkin. A stick figure girl with a smile and a heart next to her. "Can I give it to her?" she asked. Jack smiled. "Of course." When Sarah saw the drawing, her eyes filled with tears. She pressed the napkin gently to her chest, whispering, "Thank you, Emily." For the first time, Jack saw her smile, a real smile, fragile and bright, like the first break of sunlight after a storm. That smile stayed in his mind long after they left. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe because he recognized that kind of pain, the kind that hides behind a polite smile. He'd been there too after losing his wife to cancer. The silence, the helplessness, the feeling that the world just keeps moving while you're stuck in slow motion. One night, the diner lights glowed through the rain, and Jack sat there alone, waiting for his order. Sarah moved through the tables, quieter than usual. When she reached his booth, she whispered, late." He smiled. Couldn't sleep. Figured coffee might help. She nodded, setting the cup down. "Coffee helps everything," she said, her tone carrying a trace of humor, or maybe sorrow pretending to be humor. Then suddenly a car horn blared outside. Her hand jerked, coffee splashing onto the table. She froze, eyes wide, body trembling. Jack reached for a napkin, helping her wipe the spill. "Hey," he said softly, "you okay?" She blinked quickly, forcing a nod. "Yeah, just startled." But he saw it now, the truth hiding in plain sight. She wasn't just scared, she was afraid of someone. Days later, the mystery began to unravel. Jack and Emily had stopped by for breakfast, but Sarah wasn't there. Another waitress said quietly, "She called in sick." Something about the tone made his stomach twist. The next day, still no Sarah. The third day, he saw her walking into work late, wearing sunglasses, even though the sky was gray. When she took them off, Jack saw the fading bruise beneath her eye. That was the moment everything inside him changed. He couldn't sit by anymore. He waited until the lunch rush faded, then slipped a small note onto her counter before leaving. It simply said, "If you ever need help, any help, I'm here. You don't owe me anything, just know you're not alone." He didn't expect her to respond. People trapped in fear rarely did. But the next evening when he walked in, she slipped a folded napkin into his hand while refilling his coffee. Inside, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Thank you. I just don't know how to get out." Jack's chest tightened. He knew what it meant. The bruises, the fear, the way she froze at certain voices. Someone was hurting her and she felt trapped. He wanted to storm in, to fix everything, to protect her like he would his daughter. But life wasn't a movie, and saving someone meant patience, not pressure. So he started small, leaving encouraging notes, helping her close up the diner so she wouldn't have to walk alone, talking to her about Emily, about life, about hope. Slowly her laughter started to return, soft at first, like testing sunlight after a long winter. Then one night, after closing, Sarah finally told him the truth. Her ex-boyfriend, the man at the counter that day, had found her after she left him months ago. He'd been controlling, violent, and unpredictable. She'd moved states to escape, changed jobs, changed her phone, but he'd found her again. The day he came into the diner, she said, she felt the air leave her lungs. She dropped the plate because it was him, the voice she'd hoped to never hear again. Jack listened silently, fists clenched under the table. When she finished, she whispered, "I don't have anyone left. I can't go back, but I don't know where to go." He swallowed hard, then said, "You don't have to go back, and you're not alone anymore." That night, he called a friend, a local police officer he trusted, and together they found Sarah a safe place through a women's shelter network. It took time, paperwork, and courage, but Sarah agreed. The next morning, when she stepped into his truck with a small duffel bag, Emily sitting in the back seat with her favorite stuffed bear ready to protect Miss Sarah, Jack felt something shift. The rain had stopped. The sky was a calm blue, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah looked like she could breathe again. Weeks passed. Sarah found a small apartment near the edge of town and a new job at a bakery. Jack and Emily visited often, sometimes bringing cookies, sometimes just to say hi. Sarah slowly started to rebuild, not just her life, but her trust. And though Jack never expected anything in return, he couldn't deny how her smile now made his heart beat a little faster. One evening, as they sat on her porch watching Emily chase fireflies, Sarah said softly, "You saved me." Jack shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could."
Tears swelled in her eyes, reflecting the porch light like tiny stars. "You don't know what that means to me." He smiled, looking out at Emily, laughing in the yard. "I think I do." Months later, Sarah joined them for Thanksgiving. She cooked with Emily, laughing, singing softly to the radio. It was the first time Jack had seen his home so full of warmth since his wife had passed. When Sarah placed her hand gently over his during dinner, no words were needed. Two broken souls had found a quiet kind of healing, not through grand gestures, but through kindness, patience, and the belief that no one is beyond rescue. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, Jack stepped outside. The stars shimmered above the fields, and he thought about